A white envelope slides under the door at midnight. Inside, just one photograph, a 4-year-old girl, red coat, taken from across the street that morning. No name, no note. Only the number in the corner, 8:52 a.m. The woman's hands don't shake as she holds it. They should. Rewind 4 hours. The city spreads out under the January snow. Cold, indifferent, it never cared about anyone. Past a restaurant front where soft piano still plays behind the glass. Inside, warmth, white tablecloths. Crystal catching the light like something in a museum. And at table 9, 4 men sitting too still. The kind of still that means they were trained to look relaxed. One keeps his phone face down, his hand close enough to reach it in under a second. The woman approaches with a water pitcher, a professional smile, invisible. Good evening. My name is Lena, and I'll be. She looks up. The color drains from it. The man at the head of the table, she'd buried him under 5 years of silence. And he isn't surprised to see her, like he'd been sitting there, waiting. The city didn't care about Lena Voss. That was the thing nobody told you when you were 18 and in love and absolutely certain your life was going to be different. The city didn't care. The winter didn't care. The landlord who'd slipped the 3rd late notice under her door that morning definitely didn't care. Lena cared. That was the problem. She cared about the notice. About the heating unit that had been making that grinding sound since Tuesday and now made no sound at all, which was somehow worse. About the daycare invoice sitting on the kitchen counter next to an empty coffee mug, and a crayon drawing of what Wren had informed her was a horse, but also maybe a dragon. She'd spent 30 seconds staring at that drawing before leaving for work. 30 seconds she didn't have. Mostly she cared about not being late, because Mrs. Harrow had made it very clear. One more strike, just one, and that would be the end of it. And the end of Cartwell's meant the end of the slightly better than minimum tips that got Wren's daycare paid on time. Which meant the end of the schedule that made the morning coffee shop shift possible. Which meant the end of the math. And the math was everything. So Lena ran, not gracefully. Not the way women ran in movies, hair streaming, coat billowing. She ran the way you run when your left sneaker for sole is separating at the toe, and the sidewalk is glazed with ice, and the temperature is the kind of cold that makes your lungs feel like they're being wrung out like a wet cloth. She ran because Wren needed the daycare, and the daycare needed the money, and the money needed this job, Sybil math. Brutal math, the kind that had been running on a loop in her head for 4 years. The back entrance of Cartwell's breathed warmth at her like a living thing. She stepped inside and the cold fell away and the kitchen swallowed her whole. Garlic, butter, something expensive reducing in a pan. The metallic percussion of a line working at full speed, every surface gleaming, every hand moving with the particular efficiency of people who understood that slowness cost everyone. She shoved her coat into her locker and pulled her hair up and checked her face in the small mirror taped inside the door, dark circles, pale skin. The particular exhaustion that doesn't come from one bad night, but from 4 years of bad nights stacked on top of each other like overdue invoices. She pinched her cheeks. Old trick. Her grandmother's trick. Fake the color. Fake the energy. Walk out there like you have somewhere else you'd rather be. You're cutting it close. Priya didn't look up from the reservation clipboard. Mrs. Harrow's been asking. I'm 3 minutes early. She counts from when you should be ready. Not when you walk in, of course she does. Table 9 is yours tonight, Priya added. Plus your regular 4-top and the Kellerman anniversary couple, who will absolutely request a different server halfway through their entrees and then leave 11%. How do you know they'll switch servers? Because they do it every year. Priya finally looked up. Something in her expression shifted. A small, careful thing. VIP edition on 9. Last-minute booking. Mrs. Harrow wants the service clean. Lena tied her apron. How many? 4 suits. The kind that don't look at the prices. Fine. Good, actually. Those tables tipped better when the service was invisible. Move like water. Anticipate. Never make them ask twice. She could do that. She'd been doing that for 3 years. She pushed through the swinging door into the dining room and became someone else entirely. Cartwell's on a Thursday night was not quite full, but trying hard to look like it was. Warm lighting. White tablecloths. The kind of soft piano music piped through invisible speakers designed to make people feel like they were spending their money in a tasteful way. The regulars were in their usual spots. Table 3. The Hendersons, celebrating something they celebrated every 2 weeks. Table 7. The man who always ordered the duck and always seemed surprised when it arrived. Table 11. A first date going either very well or very badly. Hard to tell. They were both working too hard. Lena moved through it all like she was part of the architecture. She topped off waters, recited the specials to the Kellermans, said all the right things in all the right order. And then she turned toward table 9, 4 men. All of them the kind of still that meant they were trained to look relaxed. The kind of quiet that filled a room instead of leaving space in it. One near the window kept scanning the entrance, even while appearing to study his menu. Another had his phone face down on the table, and his hand close enough to reach it in under a second. Lena had worked enough late evenings in this city to recognize money that came with edges. She fixed her smile, picked up her water pitcher. Professional, invisible. Water, specials, step back. She approached the table, started with the nearest chair and moved clockwise the way she always did. She was focused on the water level in the glass directly in front of her, which is why she didn't see him until she was already speaking. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Cartwell's. My name is Lena, and I'll be..." She looked up, and the sentence just stopped like a film reel snapping mid-frame, like a record scratching across a room that had suddenly gone completely silent. Even though the piano was still playing, and the kitchen was still roaring, and the Kellermans were still murmuring somewhere behind her, her brain did something embarrassing. It said, "Oh, just that, oh." Cormac Ashby, sitting at the head of the table like he'd been placed there by someone who understood exactly how much space he needed to take up, broader than she remembered. The boy she'd known had the lean, restless build of someone who spent his afternoons under car hoods and his evenings arguing about things that mattered to nobody but the two of them. This man was something different. Shoulders that a tailor had clearly spent serious time with. Dark hair, shorter and sharper than the careless waves she'd pushed back from his forehead in the dark of his uncle's garage. A jaw that had lost whatever softness 18 had left in it and replaced it with something carved and deliberate. And a scar, small, bisecting his right eyebrow at a precise angle. Not there 5 years ago. Not there the last time she'd seen his face. His eyes were the same. That was the thing. That was the particular cruelty of it. Everything else had changed, and those eyes had not moved an inch. Dark. Still. Fixed on her with the same quality of attention she remembered from when they were 17, and he used to look at her like she was the only problem worth solving. He was not surprised. That was what registered first. Before the panic. Before the cold wave of something she absolutely refused to name. He was not surprised to see her. Not even a flicker of it. The way a man sits still when he's been waiting, he knew. She didn't know how she knew that he knew. But she knew. "My name is Lena," she said again. Because apparently that was what her mouth had decided to do. Repeat itself. Very professional. The corner of his mouth moved. Just barely. Not quite a smile. "Something smaller and older than a smile, I know," he said. She took the drink orders. She wrote them down even though she didn't need to, because her hands needed yet something to do. The man sitting immediately to Cormac's left. Breck. She would learn his name later, though right now he was simply the one with the watchful eyes and the slow, careful way of turning his head. Glanced at her, and then at Cormac, and then back at her with the particular neutrality of someone professionally trained to observe and not react. She noted that. Filed it somewhere behind the panic. "We'll need a few minutes with the menus," said the man across from Breck. "Of course." She smiled at the table as a whole. Not at him specifically. Definitely not at him specifically. "I'll give you some time." She turned and walked back toward the service station and did not look back and did not let her pace change and did not make any of the 17 faces currently happening inside her chest appear on her actual face. "He's a customer. He's a customer at your table on a Thursday night. You have done harder things than this. You pushed a human being into the world in a hospital room with no one in the waiting area. You can take a drink order." She set the water pitcher down and Priya appeared from nowhere. "You look like someone just told you something very bad," Priya said quietly. "I'm fine. You're not fine. You're the color of the tablecloths." "I'm fine, Priya." Priya looked past her toward table 9, looked back. "Which one is it?" "None of them, Lena. All of them. I'm equally fine about all of them. Can I get those drink orders in, please?" She returned to the table. She set down the scotch in front of Cormac last. On purpose. She thought if she saved him for last, she'd have enough composure built up to simply place the glass and move away and be done with it. She was wrong. His fingers touched hers. Brief. Possibly accidental. Definitely not accidental. Thank you, Lena. The way he said her name, stop it. The way he said her name was exactly what she'd spent 5 years trying to forget. The particular weight he put on it. Like it meant something specific. Like it was a sentence with all the middle words removed and only the ones that mattered left standing. Are you ready to order? She said. Or would you like more time? More time, said the man across from Breck. Cormac said nothing, just watched her. The glass in his hand. That stillness that had no bottom to it. She walked away. She could feel his eyes the entire length of the walk back. Every single step. The rest of the service passed in a particular kind of controlled dissociation she had gotten very good at. She brought the appetizers. She described the specials when asked. She refilled glasses at the precise moment they needed refilling. Not too soon. Not too late. Occasionally she caught him watching her, not the way men watched servers. Not appraising or bored or calculating the tip. Watching her the way you watch something you've been looking for a long time and have finally, unexpectedly found in a place you weren't expecting. Stop it. He had left. That was the fact. That was the entire fact. He had been there, and then he had not been there, and then she had been alone in a bathroom at 7 weeks, holding a test and thinking, very calmly, actually, the calm that comes after the thing you were afraid of has already happened. Okay. So it's this. Not, where is he? Not, why didn't he call? Just, okay, so it's this. She had gotten very good at that particular brand of okay. By the time the check came, she was exhausted in the specific way that has nothing to do with physical labor. She brought the leather folder to his side of the table. Set it down. Stepped back. He opened it without looking at the total. Slid in a matte black card. She took it, ran it, brought back the receipt. He signed it with one fast stroke and held out the folder. She reached for it. He didn't let go. Not grabbing. Not rough. Just. Not releasing. It was a pleasure, he said. Low. For her, specifically. Not for the table. You've grown into yourself, Lena? She looked at him. There was a whole speech somewhere inside her. Years of it. Every argument she'd constructed at 3 a.m. and then carefully dismantled by morning. Because what was the point? Everything she decided she would say if she ever, hypothetically, impossibly, found herself standing across from him again. All of it was there, and none of it came out. Thank you for dining with us tonight, she said. Have a good evening, she turned. His hand closed around her wrist, not grabbing, not rough. Just. There, she went still. We should talk, he said. I'm working. His eyes moved briefly to the clock on the wall above the bar. Then back. You finish at 11, and then I go home. I'll wait. The weight of the table's attention shifted around them. She felt it without looking. Breck. The others. All of them very carefully, not watching. She pulled her wrist free. Don't, she said, and walked away. He waited. Of course he did. She came out the employee entrance at 11. 14 with her coat, half-buttoned, and her bag over one shoulder, and found him exactly where some part of her, the part she'd been arguing with all evening, had known he would be, the black car idling at the curb, the door already open. Him standing in the space between the car and the sidewalk in a long overcoat, with his hands in his pockets, and the snow just beginning. Not heavy snow. The kind that drifts. The kind that makes everything look like a held breath. No, she said, walking past him. It's late. I know what time it is. The bus doesn't come for 20 minutes. Then I'll wait for it. He fell into step beside her, not touching, not speaking. Just walking at the exact pace she was walking, which was the most infuriating thing he could possibly have done because it made ignoring him completely impossible. Lena, don't. I just want. I know what you want. She stopped walking. Turned, the snow settling on both their shoulders, on his expensive coat and her second-hand one. Neither of them the same. You want to explain. You want to say whatever it is you spent however long preparing to say. And it's going to be very reasonable and very Cormac. And it's going to account for all the things you couldn't control. And I'm going to stand here at 11 o'clock in the snow outside a restaurant in shoes that cost $12, and I'm going to listen to it. He was very still. So, she said. Go ahead. A long pause, the snow the distant sound of the city, muffled and indifferent. You're right, he said. About all of it, that was not what she expected. She opened her mouth, closed it. Of course he does that. Of course he just... I'm not going to explain it on a sidewalk, he said. Not tonight. But I need you to know. Don't tell me what you need. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, he said. Which was also not what she expected. Because the Cormac she remembered did not say okay when he meant something else. He argued. He maneuvered. He found the angle. This man was standing in the snow saying okay and meaning it, and she didn't know what to do with that. She turned back toward the bus stop, took 6 steps, and then she said it, not because she'd planned to, not because this was the right moment or the right way. Just because it had been inside her for 4 years and he was standing 10 feet away, and she was tired, so tired. And something in his stillness had cracked something open in her chest, and the words came out before she could stop them. I have a daughter, she said, without turning around. She turns 5 in March. Nothing, no sound. Not even his breath. She turned. He was standing exactly where she'd left him, the math happening on his face, the subtraction. The particular stillness that comes when a number comes out differently than expected. How old, he said. Not a question. 4, she said. Her name is Wren. The snow drifted. A cab moved through the intersection behind him, indifferent and unhurried. His mouth opened, closed, and, for the first time in the entire evening, for the first time in 5 years, actually, Cormac Ashby had absolutely nothing to say. She walked to the bus stop. She got on the bus. She sat in the seat closest to the window and did not look back, except she did. Once, he was still standing there, in the middle of the sidewalk, the snow gathering on his shoulders, not moving. Just watching the bus pull away with an expression she hadn't seen on him before, like something had been decided without him. Sleep was a myth that night. Lena lay in the dark and listened to Wren breathe in the other bed, the steady animal rhythm of a child who has never once in 4 years had trouble sleeping. In, out, in, out. No hesitation, no inventory of the day's disasters. Just breathing, because breathing is what you do when you're asleep, and sleeping is what you do when it's nighttime. Cybele. Logical. Perfect. Lena stared at the ceiling. She'd told him that wasn't the plan. There was no plan, technically, but if there had been a plan, it would not have included standing outside a restaurant at 11 p.m. in the snow and dropping the central fact of her entire existence into the air between them, like a stone into still water. She played it back. His face. The stillness. The math, how old? Not, is she mine? Not, are you sure? Just, how old? Because the math was already running. Because he already knew before she confirmed it. Because Cormac Ashby had always been faster than he looked. She turned onto her side. In the other bed, Wren made a small sound and pulled her stuffed rabbit tighter. The rabbit had a name that changed weekly. This week it was Captain Buttons. Last week it was Margaret. Before that, simply the rabbit. Stated with great authority, because Wren at 4 had a phase of naming things with total accuracy and no sentimentality whatsoever. She had Cormac's eyes, not just the color, the quality, the steadiness. The thing that made you feel observed instead of just looked at. Like you were being considered seriously, rather than merely seen. Lena had spent 4 years watching her daughter discover herself, and 4 years quietly cataloging the parts that didn't come from her. The jaw, the patience, the absolute refusal to be rushed. All of it accounted for, all of it filed under. She'd been okay with it, mostly. She'd made her peace with it over time. You raise a child long enough and they stop being a reminder of someone else and start being entirely, irreversibly themselves. Wren was Wren. Not a ghost, not an echo, just Wren, but he knew now. And whatever came next was going to come whether Lena was ready for it or not. She looked at the phone on the nightstand. No messages, good, she thought. She thought it very firmly. Morning arrived with its usual lack of sympathy. Wren was up at 6:47, 7 minutes earlier than usual, which, in the economy of a preschooler, was practically the middle of the night, but apparently fine. Mommy, it's morning, it is. The sun is there. Wren pointed at the window with her whole arm, the way she pointed at everything, fully committed. That means morning. Smart kid. I know. She climbed onto Lena's bed and arranged herself cross-legged at the foot of it, Captain Buttons in her lap, and watched her mother with the patient attentiveness of a very small scientist. You didn't sleep? I slept fine. Your eyes are puffy. Thank you, Wren. They get puffy when you don't sleep. She tilted her head. Are you sad? Lena sat up, ran both hands through her hair, looked at her daughter, the jaw, the eyes, the absolute refusal to accept a deflection, and thought, this kid is going to be either a doctor or a lawyer or possibly a professional interrogator. not sad. Just thinking. About what? About your father. About the fact that I told him about you last night while standing on a sidewalk in the snow, like a person with no control over their own mouth. About the fact that he is clearly not the person I remember, but is standing in the same body wearing the same eyes, and I don't know what to do with any of that. Grown-up things, she said. Nothing for you to worry about. Ren considered this, accepted it, moved on completely, the way 4-year-olds move on, without residue, without circling back. Can we have the eggs with the cheese? Yes, and juice? Yes. Can Captain Buttons have some? Captain Buttons can have a pretend cup. A pretend cup, Ren repeated solemnly. That's fair. After drop-off, Lena stood outside the daycare in the January cold with her phone in her hand, and Cormac's number in her recent calls, and a very reasonable internal argument happening in real time. Don't call. You owe him nothing. You have managed 4 years without a single thing from him, and you will manage 4 more and 4 more after that. You have a system. The system works. Everything in the system is accounted for. Call. He's her father. Whatever he is now, whatever he became, she deserves to know. You always said that. When she asks, you will tell the truth. When she's old enough, she will know. She was 4. She was already asking 6 months ago. Do I have a daddy? Yes. Where is he? Far away. Accepted completely, briefly, then moved on. Last month. Does my daddy know about me? Not yet. Ren had thought about that very carefully and then said, That seems like something you should fix, Mommy. The particular blunt justice of a 4-year-old. Lena dialed. He picked up on the first ring. I was waiting, he said. Of course you were. We should meet, she said. Because of Ren. A pause. Small. When? Today. 3 o'clock, Alderton Park. The entrance on Mercer Street. She'd chosen it specifically. Open. Public. Benches visible from the street. Nowhere for things to get complicated. I'll be there, just you. Whoever that man was standing behind you last night. Not him. A pause. Longer. I'll see what I can do. Cormac. I'll see what I can do, Lena. She ended the call. Stood in the cold for another minute. She told Ren on the walk over, or she tried. She had been rehearsing it all morning at the coffee shop. Between orders, stacking cups, the exact words. Age appropriate, clear, not too much, not too little. Remember how I told you about your daddy? She said. How he had to go away a long time ago and didn't know about you? Ren was watching her boots on the sidewalk, taking deliberate steps to avoid the cracks. Yes, well, I found him. Or he found me. It's a little of both. Ren stopped avoiding cracks, looked up. The full attention, those eyes. Is he nice? When I knew him. He's different now, I think. But yes. I think he's still nice in the ways that matter. Does he know about me now? He does. Did he want to meet me? Lena thought about his face on the sidewalk, the snow, the absolute stillness. Yes, very much. Ren absorbed this. Took 3 more steps. Then, does he like chocolate chip pancakes? I have no idea. I'm going to ask him, Ren said with complete finality. That's how you know if someone is good. He was already there. Alderton Park in January was almost empty. A woman with a stroller on the far path. 2 teenagers on a bench, arguing quietly. The playground equipment wearing its winter coat of grit and cold. Cormac stood at the Mercer Street entrance in a dark overcoat and a suit that was entirely wrong for a playground and entirely right for him. Hands in pockets, not pacing, just waiting. Stellan. Because he had brought Stellan, she recognized him vaguely from the restaurant. Stood 20 yards back on the path, examining a tree with unconvincing interest. Good enough. She felt Ren's hand tighten in hers. He saw them at the same moment. He saw Ren first. She watched it happen. The way his gaze landed on the small figure in the red coat with dark curly hair. The way he went very still, stiller than the cold, stiller than the empty park. Just looked, his face. She hadn't expected his face. She'd expected calculation, the smooth professional blankness from the restaurant. What she saw instead was something unguarded and enormous and briefly, completely beyond his control. He recovered. Fast, but she'd seen it. He walked toward them slowly. Not like someone approaching a business meeting. Like someone approaching something they were afraid of breaking. This is Ren, Lena said, when he was close enough. Ren looked up at him with the frank appraisal that only 4-year-olds can get away with, top to bottom. Full examination. You look like the prince in my book, she announced. But the prince doesn't have a scar. Something in his face shifted. The ghost of something young. This prince does, he said. Ren considered that. What happened? A long time ago. Nothing interesting. Everything is interesting if you tell it right, Ren said. Mommy says that. He glanced at Lena. She looked away. Your mom is very smart, he said. Ren accepted this as obvious. Do you want to see me go down the big slide? I'm not scared of it anymore. I was scared before, but now I'm not. I'd like that very much. And Ren was off, just like that. The conversation complete. The verdict rendered, the case closed. She ran toward the slide with the total commitment of someone who has fully moved on to the next agenda item. Lena watched her go. Beside her, Cormac was very quiet. She has your eyes, Lena said. I know, his voice was different, stripped of the careful modulation from the restaurant. Just the words. Just him. He stopped, started again. I don't have the right word for it. No, Lena said. There isn't one. They stood watching Ren negotiate the ladder with focused determination. She doesn't know who I am, he said. Not quite a question. She knows her father went away before she was born, that he didn't know about her, that he was kind once, and would have loved her if he'd known. Cormac was quiet for a long moment. Was kind, he said. Picking up the past tense. You're different. Yes. I don't know what you are now. No, he said. But you're going to let me try to show you. That's why you called. She didn't answer. Which was, of course, its own kind of answer. The coffee shop near the park was warm and smelled of something cinnamon and good. Ren had been promised hot chocolate. A promise Lena had made in a moment of tactical weakness and now had to honor. Cormac held the door. His driver had materialized from somewhere and held back. Stellan took a table near the entrance and studied his phone. The choreography was seamless. That was what money bought, she realized. Not just things. The invisible machinery that managed the space around you without you ever having to ask. She helped Ren out of her coat. Cormac watched them the way he'd watched the slide, like he was memorizing something that might be taken away. What can I get, he asked. Hot chocolate, Ren said immediately, with extra marshmallows. A lot of extra. How many is a lot? Ren held up both hands. All fingers spread, 10. Cormac said seriously. Understood. He looked at Lena. Just coffee. Black. He raised an eyebrow. She looked away. He went to the counter. Ren watched him go head tilted. He's tall. He is. Is he your boyfriend? Oh, no. No. He's someone I used to know. Before I was born? Before you were born. Yes, Ren processed this with care. He looks at you like Prince. Eric looks at Ariel. Lena opened her mouth. Cormac came back with the drinks. Hot chocolate in front of Ren, overflowing with marshmallows. She counted them visibly, lips moving. That's more than 10, she said with great satisfaction. You seemed like you could handle it, he said. He sat down across from Lena, set down her black coffee without comment, took his own, black as well, she noticed, and said nothing. Ren drank. Foam mustache formed immediately. She lowered the mug and fixed Cormac with the full attention. Are you my daddy? The table went quiet. The coffee shop continued around them. Someone paid at the counter. The music shifted from something jazzy to something slower. The world did not, in fact, stop for this. But the three of them were inside a held breath. Cormac looked at Lena. She gave a very small nod. He looked at Ren. And whatever happened in his face in that moment, she would not describe it to anyone, ever. It was not for describing. It was not hers to describe. Yes, he said. I am. Ren looked at him, at Lena. Back at him. You went away, she said, simply. No accusation. Just the fact. The way she named things, with accuracy and without drama. I did, how come? I had to go somewhere far away. And I didn't know about you. He paused. If I had known, I would have come back sooner. Ren considered this with the gravity it deserved. A long, serious consideration. Okay, she said then. Can you make pancakes? He blinked. Yes, mommies are always a little bit burnt. She delivered this with diplomatic regret. Not bad. Just a little bit. I make them not burnt, he said. With chocolate chips? With chocolate chips. Ren nodded once, picked up her hot chocolate. The case was closed. Judgment rendered. Next agenda item. Lena stared at her coffee. She was not going to laugh. Absolutely not. She had not laughed in the presence of Cormac Ashby in 5 years, and she was not going to start now because of pancakes. She did not laugh, but it was very close. The car ride home. She'd agreed to it. The bus wasn't coming for 30 minutes, and it was 8 degrees, and Ren was already half asleep, on her feet. She agreed to it, and now she was sitting in the back of a car that probably cost more than her rent for the next decade. Ren's head tilted sideways and came to rest against Cormac's arm. He went completely still. He looked down at this small, warm weight that had simply chosen him as a safe place without asking anyone's permission. His face did the thing again. The large, unguarded thing that had no professional distance in it. He adjusted his arm carefully. Supporting her without waking her, the city moved outside the tinted windows. She trusts easily, Lena said quietly. Like her mother used to. She looked at the window. Her mother learned better. He didn't argue with that. Which was, she thought, probably the most important thing he'd done all day. The car pulled up in front of her building. She knew what it looked like through his eyes and had been knowing it all afternoon. The peeling paint on the upper cornice. The flickering light above the entrance. The concrete steps with the long diagonal crack she always avoided on the left side when it iced over. He didn't say anything about it. She gathered Ren, who murmured and resettled against her shoulder. She reached for the door handle. Lena, she stopped. Thank you, he said. For today, she looked at him, the Ren-shaped absence against his arm where her daughter had been resting. His face in the low light of the car. Don't thank me yet, she said. We have a lot to figure out. I know. It's not going to be simple. I know that too. She pushed the door open. The cold came in. I'll call you, she said. Tomorrow. We'll talk about what this looks like. For Ren, he nodded once. She got out of the car. She carried her daughter up the cracked steps, key already in hand, and she did not look back. She told herself that for a full 30 seconds. Then she looked back. He was still there. In the open door of the car, watching her. Not the cold calculation of the restaurant. Not the careful professional stillness. Just watching the way you watch something you've spent a very long time looking for. She went inside. She put Ren to bed and tucked Captain Buttons under her arm and stood in the dark doorway, listening to her daughter breathe. In, out, Sybil. Logical. Perfect. She was not sure, standing there in the dark, whether the thing taking shape in her chest was hope, or something far more dangerous. The call came at 8:47 the next morning. If not from Cormac, Lena was on her second coffee, standing at the kitchen counter in yesterday's socks, watching Ren eat cereal with the focused intensity of someone diffusing a bomb. One piece at a time. Counted. Arranged. Eaten in order of size, smallest first. She gets that from me, Lena thought. That one she gets from me. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't pick up. Ms. Voss, a woman's voice. Clipped. Professional. This is the administrative office at Cartwell's. Mrs. Harrow asked me to confirm your shift schedule for the week, which was strange, because Mrs. Harrow had never once used an admin to confirm anything. Mrs. Harrow walked up to you directly and told you where you were standing wrong. Of course, Lena said. She wrote down the shifts. Said thank you, hung up, looked at the phone. That was nothing, she told herself. That was completely nothing. Ren held up a spoonful of cereal. Mommy. The milk ratio is off. I'll fix it. You said that yesterday. I mean it more today. She called him at noon, on her break at the coffee shop, pressed against the brick wall in the alley out back. He picked up before the second ring. I've been thinking, she said. So have I. Ren needs consistency. She can't get attached to someone who's going to disappear again. I won't disappear, Cormac. I won't. Simple. No argument. No elaboration. Just those two words sitting there like something solid. She exhaled slowly. Dinner. Tonight. Without Ren. We need to talk about what this actually looks like, and I can't do that while she's negotiating marshmallow counts. I know a place. Not somewhere that requires me to own things I don't own. A pause. I'll send the address. I can meet you there. I'll send a car, Cormac. I can meet you there. A longer pause. Fine. She hung up. Fine, she thought. Great. Perfect. This is all completely fine. The restaurant was called Sotera. She'd heard the name. Vaguely. The way you hear names of places that exist in a city you live in, but not in a world you inhabit. The kind of place where the door was opened by a person whose only job was opening the door and making you feel like you belonged inside. She wore her black dress. The one from her grandmother's funeral 2 years ago. It fit. It was clean. It was the best she had. She knew when she walked in that it wasn't quite enough. Not because anyone looked at her. No one looked at her. That was actually the tell. The staff were too trained to let any recognition register on their faces, which meant they all noticed, and were very professionally pretending they hadn't. Wonderful. This is all completely. Cormac was waiting at the entrance. Dark suit, no tie. The top button undone, which for some reason was worse than full formal because it suggested he was relaxed. He wasn't. She could see that immediately. But he wanted to seem like he was. His eyes moved over her when she came in. Something in his face warmed. You look. Don't, she said. He closed his mouth. Good. She followed the host to a private room in the back. One table, soft nut lighting, a single candle, glassware that caught the light like something in a museum. I thought we'd be more comfortable with privacy, he said. Pulling out her chair, she sat, looked at the room, looked at him, more comfortable, she said. Right. The wine arrived before she could redirect the conversation. He'd selected it without consulting her or the list. A deep red. The server poured with the ceremony of someone performing for an audience. Cormac watched her instead of the glass. She picked it up. One sip. The flavor was fine. It was fine. It was possibly the best thing she'd tasted in years, and she was absolutely not going to say that out loud. You didn't ask me what I wanted. You said black coffee yesterday, which means you're not a sweet wine person. And the kitchen is doing a reduction tonight that needs something with weight. She looked at him. I pay attention, he said. I know you do. That had always been the thing with Cormac. The paying attention. When they were 18 and broke, and the best date they could manage was splitting a $12 pizza on a park bench, he had paid attention. To everything. What she ordered. Which side of the bench she preferred. The way she held her fork, even when she thought no one was watching. It was the most intimate and also the most destabilizing thing about him. Then. Now. Apparently always. Tell me what you do, she said. Actually. Not the version you give people at parties. He set down his glass. How much do you want to know? Everything that's relevant to my daughter's safety, a breath. My uncle ran an organization. Import, distribution, contract enforcement. When he died, I was 22 and I had two options. Step in or step away, he paused. Stepping away wasn't actually an option. Why not? Because the people he owed debts to don't accept resignations. Lena held the stem of her glass without drinking. So you stepped in. I survived. And then I built. And then I got to a point where I had enough leverage to start making different choices. And now, real estate. 4 properties. A restaurant acquisition in progress. Clean money. Legitimate structure. He looked at her directly. It's been 2 years in the making. I'm almost done. Almost isn't done. No, he said. It isn't. She appreciated that he didn't dress it up. Didn't soften the almost into something more comfortable. Just let it sit there being what it was, and the man who was at your table. Breck, something moved through his face. Brief, controlled. He works for me. He watched me the way people watch threats, I noticed. That's not normal behavior for someone who manages distribution networks. Cormac was quiet for a moment. No, it isn't. She let that sit without pushing it. There was something in his voice when he said Breck's name. A flatness that wasn't quite the same as his other flatnesses. She filed it carefully. He reached into his inner jacket pocket, set a key on the white tablecloth between them. Silver. A plain keychain. Building on Harwell Street, he said. 8th floor. 3 bedrooms. Good school district. Doorman, camera system, backup generator. I've owned the building for 6 months. She stared at it. You bought the building, she said. Yes, before talking to me. Yes. Before you even knew Wren existed? A pause. I bought it because I was planning to come back. I didn't know there was a Wren. But I was coming back. She looked at the key. The key looked back. That's not how this works, she said. You can't just acquire things and then present them as decisions I get to ratify. I know. I know, Lena. She picked up her wine, set it down. Why didn't you come back sooner? Real silence, not the considering kind. The kind where someone is deciding how true to be. Because I wasn't safe to come back to, he said finally. The first 3 years I was managing debts I hadn't made and enemies I hadn't chosen. If I'd found you then, you would have been in the crosshairs of every grievance anyone had with my uncle. And there were a lot of grievances. And now? Now, I'm the one holding the leverage. He met her eyes. No one moves against me without consequence. That includes anyone connected to me. She looked at him for a long moment. Is that supposed to be reassuring? Yes, it's not. I know that too, she almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because he kept doing it. Absorbing her pushback without deflecting, without justifying, just taking it in and sitting with it. It was disarming. And she was deeply suspicious of anything that disarmed her. She picked up the key, turned it over once, set it back down without pocketing it. Tell me what you're proposing. Specifically, he laid it out, the apartment, in Wren's name, held in trust, not contingent on anything Lena did or didn't do. The school fund, healthcare, monthly contribution to household expenses. Lena listened without interrupting. She didn't say anything for a long time after he finished, And in exchange, she said, "Nothing," he said. "She's my daughter. This is what fathers do. This is what fathers who are trying to re-establish trust do." "Yes," he said. "That too." She looked at the key on the tablecloth. "And us? Where does that fit in your proposal?" Something in his expression shifted. Not the professional blankness. The thing underneath it, "I'm not going to pretend I don't want, Cormac. What I've always wanted." He didn't look away. "But I'm not asking for that. Not tonight. Tonight I'm asking to be Ren's father. That's the beginning. Everything else, if it comes at all, comes after." She looked at him for a long time. "I need to think," she said. "I know, don't push me. I'm not pushing you. You bought a building, You bought a building, Cormac." He had the grace to look almost embarrassed. Point taken. She walked home. He offered the car. She refused. He offered to walk with her. She refused that too. She needed 30 minutes, and the cold air, and the city moving around her like it always did, indifferent and alive and not requiring anything from her. The streets were quiet, the particular late evening quiet of a city that has already had its Thursday and is settling towards sleep. Storefronts dark, a diner blazing yellow on the corner, the smell of exhaust and road salt, and something frying from somewhere she couldn't identify. She walked. She thought about the key, the school district, 3 bedrooms. She thought about Ren saying that seems like something you should fix, Mommy. She thought about his face when Ren fell asleep against his arm in the car. She thought about the word almost, and how it was not the same as done, and how it might never be the same as done. She did not think about the top button. Absolutely not. She got home, paid Mrs. Garfield from downstairs, checked on Ren. Asleep, Captain Buttons deployed in the armlock position that had apparently become standard, and stood in the dark bedroom doorway for a moment before going to the kitchen. She was going to make tea. Just tea. A normal cup of tea in a normal mug in her normal kitchen. She reached for the kettle and saw the envelope. It was under the door. Just the edge of it, white against the worn linoleum. She hadn't noticed when she came in because she'd been carrying Ren's daycare bag and her coat and her keys and the whole complicated weight of the evening. She picked it up white. No name, no address, unsealed. Inside, 1 photograph. Ren at the daycare entrance, red coat, dark curly hair, reaching up to push the gate button, which she couldn't quite reach yet and always had to jump slightly to touch today. The timestamp in the corner said 8:52 a.m., no note, just the photograph. Her hands were steady when she dialed. That was the thing she noticed first. She was standing in her kitchen at 11:30 at night, holding a photograph of her 4-year-old daughter taken from across the street, and her hands were completely steady, because she had no option for them not to be. He picked up before the ring finished. "Lena, someone put a photograph under my door." She kept her voice flat. "Functional. Ren. This morning. At the daycare entrance." Silence. Different from his other silences. This one had weight. "Don't touch anything else in the envelope," he said. "I'm coming, Cormac." 12 minutes. The call ended. She set the phone down. Looked at the photograph. In out. He was there in 11. She heard the car, then his footsteps on the stairs, faster than she'd expected. Not quite running, but close. He knocked twice. She opened the door. He looked at her first. Before anything else, a fast assessment, face, posture, all clear, and then she saw something move through him that had nothing to do with professional training. She handed him the envelope. He looked at the photograph for a long time without touching it. Then he pulled out his phone, photographed it. "Sent it somewhere, Stellan," he said, answering her unasked question. She watched him. "You know where it came from." He didn't answer right away. Which was, of course, an answer. "Cormac. It's a message," he said. "Not to you." "To me?" He set the photograph on the counter carefully. "Someone who knows I've come back, and who wants me to know what I have to lose. My daughter is not a positioning move." "No." Something in his voice went very flat. "She's not." "Then what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to find out who sent this, and I'm going to deal with it." "Deal with it how?" A pause. "That depends on who it is." She held his gaze. "Is she in danger?" "Not tonight." "That's not what I asked, Lena." He stepped closer, not touching, just closer. "No one will touch her. I need you to hear that. Saying it doesn't make it true." "No." He looked at her steadily. "But meaning it does." She held his gaze in the bad lighting of her kitchen. The worn linoleum, the stack of bills on the counter, the crayon drawing on the fridge. "Pack what Ren needs for a few days," he said. "The Harwell apartment is ready. It's safer." I'm not uprooting my daughter in the middle of the night. Because someone slipped a photograph under a door. Lena. I will call you in the morning. We will talk about what to do with the information we have in daylight. And in the meantime, you will find out who this came from. A muscle moved in his jaw. Okay, he said. He looked at the photograph one more time. Then he left. She locked the door, put the kettle on, stood at the counter until the water boiled, poured the tea, drank it, chucked on Wren, still asleep, Captain Buttons still deployed. She stood in doorway and listened to her daughter breathe and thought about all the things she didn't yet know and all the things she was going to have to figure out. In, out, one thing at a time. The next morning, Stellan showed up at her door at 8:15. She knew it was him because she'd looked through the peephole. A habit she'd had for 4 years and recently had additional reasons to maintain. Mid-30s, broad, the same watchful stillness as everyone in Cormac's orbit. Dark coat, Ms. Voss. His voice was unexpectedly quiet. I need to talk to you, not on Cormac's behalf. My own. She looked at him through the door for a moment. Terrible idea, she thought. She opened it anyway. He came in, stood in the middle of her living room like someone who understood he didn't have the right to take up space and was actively trying to minimize the amount he used. Refused the chair she offered. Declined coffee. Just stood. How long have you been in the city? He said. 4 years. He nodded once. I've known about Wren for 18 months, he said. The kitchen went very quiet. I beg your pardon. Someone I know saw you at the market on Decatur. With Wren. Recognized you. Sent me a photograph. Nothing threatened. Just a sighting. I saw the child. He looked at her steadily. I did the math. Lena said nothing. I didn't tell Cormac, he said. She found her voice. Why? Because 18 months ago, he was in the most dangerous transition of his life. The last 2 people who'd held his uncle's position were both killed within a year of taking it. He'd spent 3 years building enough stability to survive a challenge, and he was this close. He held his thumb and forefinger almost touching. This close to being actually free. If I had told him about Wren, he would have been on your doorstep inside 24 hours, regardless of how safe it was. Regardless of what it cost him, maybe that was his choice to make. Yes, Stellan said, it was. And I made it for him. He didn't flinch from it. I'm not asking you to forgive me for that. I'm telling you because you deserve to know. And because the photograph under your door last night, someone else made the same connection I did. Except they're not trying to protect you with it. Lena sat down on the arm of the couch. Who? She said. His name is Harlan Voss. A pause. No relation. It's a common name. Harlan. He was the power behind Cormac's uncle for 20 years. When Cormac consolidated the organization, Harlan lost his position, his income, most of his influence. Stellan's voice was entirely neutral. He's been watching for an opening for 2 years. Wren is an opening. Lena looked at the wall. Wren's latest drawing was taped there. A family, apparently. Labeled in her emerging handwriting, Mommy. Me. Captain Buttons. And then, in a slightly different crayon, recently added, Daddy. Does Cormac know about Harlan? Yes. He's known Harlan was watching for over a year. Does Cormac know that you knew about Wren? Stellan was quiet. Which meant no, you need to tell him, she said. Yes, today. I know. She looked at him. Why are you telling me first? He considered the question carefully. Because you're the one who needs to decide whether to trust him. And you can't make that decision with incomplete information. He paused. Cormac will handle the threat. He's very good at handling threats. But he's not always good at understanding what the person in front of him actually needs to hear. She thought about the key, the bot building. The wine selected without asking. No, she said. He's not. He's trying, Stellan said, for what it's worth. I've known him for 9 years. I've never seen him try at anything the way he's trying at this. She didn't respond to that. Tell him today, she said. Before he hears it from someone else. Stellan nodded once. Moved toward the door. Stopped, she looks like him, he said. Around the eyes, I know, Lena said. He left. She sat on the couch for a long time, then she texted Cormac. We need to talk. Come here. Not a restaurant. He came at noon. Just him. She let him in. He looked around the apartment with the same eyes he'd used the first time, cataloging the space, the layout. Different from how a real estate person would look. More like how someone looks when they're assessing a perimeter. Stellan told me, he said, before she could speak. She looked at him. He called you, on the way here, something in his jaw? He told me everything. She watched his face. The controlled anger. The thing underneath the controlled anger, which was worse because it was directed inward. He was trying to protect you, she said. He made a choice that wasn't his to make. Yes, he did. She sat on the arm of the couch. So did you, 5 years ago. You decided what was best for me without asking. He looked at her. I'm not saying he was right, she said. I'm saying maybe you understand the impulse better than you'd like to admit. A long silence. That's fair, he said, quietly. Like it cost him something, she exhaled. Tell me about Harlan, he told her. Not everything. She could tell there were corners he was steering around. But enough. The history, the displacement, the 2 years of watching and waiting. He's not going to move on Ren directly, Cormac said. That's not his method. He wants leverage. He wants me off balance, reactive, making decisions from fear instead of strategy. So last night was a message. Yes. To make you know what you have to lose? Yes. She looked at him. And now you do. Something in his face. Not the professional blankness. The real thing. I knew before the photograph, he said. I knew the second she asked me if I could make pancakes. She almost smiled. Stopped herself. What are you going to do? She said. I'm building a case. 2 years of financial records. Transactions that connect back to operations the FBI has been watching for 4 years. I've been sitting on this material as protection, a deterrent. In case Harlan ever moved, he's moved. Yes, she looked at him for a long moment. Cormac, how close is this to being over? He met her eyes. Closer than it was a week ago. That's not an answer, no. But it's the honest version of one. She stood up, walked to the window, the street below, ordinary and indifferent, and doing exactly what it always did. Move us to the Harwell apartment, she said. He went very still. Not forever, she said. Not as a commitment to anything beyond Ren's safety. Just until this is done, she turned. But you do it the right way. We look at the apartment together. Ren gets to help set up her room. We explain it to her as an adventure, not a crisis. She held his gaze. And you tell me everything, not the managed version. Everything, Lena, everything. Or we don't move anywhere and you handle this at a distance and we go back to exactly what we were doing. A pause. Everything, he said. Sunday. She'd been thinking about this moment all week, not the logistics of it, just the general shape of Cormac Ashby in her kitchen, in the morning light, making something the reality was. He was wearing a dark sweater instead of a suit jacket, and he still looked like a person who had never in his life owned anything cheap. He was studying the bag of flour with the expression of someone who had made a specific promise to a very specific 4-year-old and was taking it with complete and absolute seriousness. And Ren was standing on a chair pulled up to the counter, in her pajamas with the rabbits on them, arms folded, overseeing the entire operation. The ratio, Ren said, is very important. I know. Last time Mommy said she measured, and she did not measure. I'm measuring, I'm watching, I can see that. Lena stood in the doorway with her coffee. She had been standing there for approximately 3 minutes. She had meant to walk in and participate, except Cormac was cracking eggs one-handed, not showing off. Just the way he did it. The way some people do things, efficiently, without ceremony. Ren was watching technique with pure scientific absorption. How did you learn that? Ren asked. My uncle taught me. A long time ago. Was he nice? A pause. Careful. Sometimes. Ren considered this. Mommy says most people are nice if you get to know them right. Your mom is smarter than most people. I know. Without any irony whatsoever. She says that about herself too. Lena, in the doorway, absolutely did not make a sound. More chips, Ren said, watching him measure. More than that. That's already quite a lot. Daddy. More, he added more. Without argument, without negotiation, the word had happened again. Casually. The way Ren deployed it now. Not a label. Not a test, just a fact of the world, filed in the same category as the sun means morning and the milk ratio is important. Cormac kept his eyes on the bowl, but she saw it. The slight shift of his shoulder. Just once. Just briefly. She walked into the kitchen. Coffee's fresh, she said. He looked over. That look she didn't have a name for. The one with no professional distance in it at all. Thank you, he said. Ren pointed. You're not watching the bowl. Sorry, boss. Boss. Ren absorbed this with enormous satisfaction. Lena poured herself a top-up and leaned against the counter and watched them. She was still scared. She wasn't going to pretend otherwise. Harlan was still out there. The word almost was still sitting in the middle of everything, like a stone in a road. But Ren was directing pancake production with total authority. Cormac was following orders. The January light was coming through the window at the right angle. the particular morning light that made even modest kitchens look like somewhere you'd want to be. And for the first time in 4 years, maybe longer, the kitchen didn't feel like a place where she was managing something alone. Don't, she told herself. Don't let one Sunday morning, Mommy, Wren, without looking up from the bowl. Stop thinking so loud. Cormac looked at her. She looked at him. Can you tell when she's doing it too? Lena asked. Yes, she does this thing with her eyebrows. I know which thing. She gets it from. Don't say me. I was going to say your mother, he said. Which was a lie. And they both knew it was a lie. And neither of them said so. Lena almost smiled, stopped herself, then didn't bother stopping. That afternoon, Stellan came. Wren was napping. Lena and Cormac were in the kitchen with coffee, and the quiet understanding that they were both waiting for the other shoe, whatever shoe it turned out to be. Stellan sat, which meant it was serious, because Stellan never sat. Breck, he said. Cormac went still. Talk, he said. The photograph. I traced the camera angle. Cross-referenced with the neighborhood coverage we pulled, Stellan looked at Cormac directly. It came from inside. Someone who knew about Wren because you told them, or because they were there Thursday night. The silence had texture. Who was in the car Thursday, Lena said. The driver. And Breck was at the restaurant. He knew where you were going after. Cormac's jaw. That muscle. Yes. Harlan didn't find out about Wren from surveillance, Stellan said. He found out because someone told him. Breck has been with you 3 years and he was there the night you walked into Cartwell's. First time Harlan moves in 18 months. 48 hours after Breck watches you recognize Lena. The math was very simple. Lena watched Cormac do it, watched the thing move through him. Not shock, because he'd suspected. She could see he'd suspected. But the particular kind of pain that comes when suspicion becomes certainty. Where is he now? Cormac said. Office. Keep him there, he stood. I'll handle it, Cormac, Lena. He looked at her. Handle it in a way that doesn't create more problems, she said quietly, meaning, I know what handle it means. Meaning, I am standing in this kitchen where you just made pancakes with our daughter. Meaning, I need to know you are still the person I am beginning to choose to believe in. He looked at her for a long moment. I know, he said and left. She found out what happened from Stellan 3 days later, sitting in the new kitchen in the Harwell apartment. They had moved quietly on Monday. Wren had named her room the Purple Kingdom and considered the whole thing a personal triumph. Breck had been given a choice. Leave the city. Take the financial package. Sign a document committing him to a very specific silence. Or face the consequences of the evidence Stellan had been building for 6 months, not violence. Not threats beyond the entirely legal kind. Breck had taken the package. He was gone by Tuesday. Is it enough? She asked. No, Stellan said with his particular honesty. But it's the right move. She thought about Cormac, saying closer than it was a week ago. He needs to finish it, she said. Whatever he's been holding back. Whatever case he's been building, he needs to use it now. Not as a deterrent. As an ending, Stellan was quiet for a moment. You're right, he said. Tell him that. He won't hear it the same way from me. She looked at him. Tell him anyway. She said. That night, Cormac came over late. Not planned. The knock at 9:47, 2 knocks. Only one person in her current life knocked exactly twice. He looked tired, not physically. The other kind. She poured him coffee. He looked at it. Then at her. Breck had been feeding information to Harlan for 8 months, he said. Not 3 years. 8 months. Starting when Harlan made contact with a financial offer, he paused. He wasn't fundamentally disloyal. He was broke and Harlan found the right moment. That's supposed to make it better? No, it makes it human. He picked up the coffee. I'm not angry anymore. She studied him. You're a little angry, a little, he agreed. Less than I expected. She leaned against the counter, the apartment quiet around them. Wren asleep in the Purple Kingdom. Stellan says, you need to finish it, she said. Stellan talks too much. He talks exactly the right amount. You've been sitting on something that can end this for 2 years, as protection. You don't need protection anymore. You need resolution, she paused, and then, we need resolution, we. She heard the word after she said it, the shape of it in the air between them. Cormac heard it too. She could see him hear it. Neither of them acknowledged it directly. Which was somehow the most honest thing that had happened all week. I know, he said. Then do it. He looked at his coffee. What happens after? When it's done? When there's no more almost? What does that look like for us? She thought about the photograph under the door, the key on the tablecloth. Ren saying daddy while he measured chocolate chips with complete seriousness. I don't know yet, she said. But I know what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like you making decisions and presenting them to me. It doesn't look like secrets kept for my own good. She held his gaze. It looks like you asking, and me deciding, and both of us talking about the things that are hard to say. He was quiet for a moment. That's a higher standard than I've been held to before, he said. Yes, she said. It is. The real look. The one with nothing managed about it. Okay, he said. She straightened. Picked up her own mug. Good night, Cormac. He moved toward the door. Stopped. She called me daddy again today, he said. When you were getting groceries, she said. He stopped. Started again, she said. Captain Buttons thinks you and I should get married, because then he would have two parents to complain to. Lena stared at him. Captain Buttons said that. Verbatim. She pressed her lips together. Hard. Good night, Cormac, she said again. He smiled. Just briefly. Just the real one. The one that transformed his face into something that could have belonged to an 18-year-old boy who once talked his way into a principal's office after hours, for reasons that seemed important at the time. Good night, Lena, he said. And left. She stood in the kitchen after the door closed, the apartment quiet and new, and not quite hers yet, but getting there. She thought about Captain Buttons and his opinions. She thought about the word almost and how it was, maybe, beginning to mean something slightly different than it had before. She put both mugs in the sink, turned off the light, went to check on Ren. In, out, Sybil, logical, perfect. The call came on a Wednesday, not to Lena, to Cormac. She found out about it the way she found out about most things in his world, through Stellan. At her door. 7:43 in the morning while Ren was still in the Purple Kingdom, narrating a diplomatic summit involving Captain Buttons and 3 stuffed bears she'd named after weather events. Stellan looked the way he looked when something had already happened that could not be unhappened. Harlan took him last night, he said. She held the door. Took who? Me. He paused. I'm Cole. Harlan took Stellan. She stared at him. Looked at the face. Not Stellan. The same quality of stillness, but different features. Different eyes. He showed her his phone. A photograph. Himself and Cormac and Stellan together, the 3 of them standing outside somewhere nondescript. I've been on rotation for 3 months. Cormac has 4 people he trusts completely. You've met 2 of them. Come in, she said. Cole told her what he knew. Harlan had people watching the warehouse district on Fenner Street. Stellan had been there late, following a financial lead on Harlan's offshore accounts. The kind of documentation that formed the core of what Cormac had been building for 2 years. Harlan's people had been faster. The message had been delivered to Cormac's phone at 4:47 a.m. Cole read it out. Langford Warehouse. Come alone. 2 hours. Or the man who knew about your daughter before you did doesn't come home. Cormac had read it. He had not called Lena. He had called Cole, who had driven here instead. Where is he now, Lena said, at the safe house on Alderman. He's preparing to go. Alone, he says yes. That's. She stopped, pressed her hand flat on the kitchen counter. That's exactly what Harlan wants. Yes, Cole said. We know, then why is he? Because Stellan is his family, Cole said it quietly. Without drama, just the fact of it. He doesn't have a lot of that. She looked at the window. The January light on the new kitchen. Ren's maritime summit audible through the wall. Captain Buttons apparently mid-speech on something of great consequence. How long does he have? She said. Harlan said 2 hours. It's been 40 minutes. She thought for a moment. The kind of thinking that has no room for hesitation. The kind she'd gotten very good at over 4 years of doing everything herself with the materials available. I need you to watch Ren, she said. Cole blinked. Ms. Voss, can you watch a 4-year-old for 3 hours? Yes. But Cormac didn't. I know he didn't. She was already moving. The bedroom. The file she kept in the back of the closet behind Ren's old winter coats. The file she'd started building 10 days ago. Because she was not an idiot. And she had not survived 4 years alone by waiting for someone else to solve the problem in front of her. The file. She'd started it the night after Stellan had told her about the 18 months he'd known about Ren. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I am in this now, she'd thought. Whether I chose it or not, and if I am in it, I am not going to stand at the edge of it watching. So she had asked questions, careful ones, not to Cormac, to Stellan, who had answered most of them. About Harlan. About the offshore accounts. About the federal interest, Agent Darrow. Specifically, who had been building a case against Harlan's operations for 4 years and was, Stellan had mentioned in passing, increasingly frustrated by the pace of it. Lena had written down the name. She was not a lawyer, not an investigator. She was a 23-year-old woman with 2 years of unfinished early childhood education and 4 years of experience solving every problem in front of her with whatever materials were available. The materials available included Stellan's documentation, which he had left on the kitchen table during one visit and she had photographed carefully before he took it. Harlan's name, his company names, the transaction dates, and a federal agent who wanted to close a case. She had called Agent Darrow 6 days ago. She had not told Cormac, not because she was deceiving him, because she hadn't been certain it would matter, because she'd wanted to have something real before she put it in front of him, because she was not the kind of person who asked permission to solve problems. The file held the documentation, her notes. Darrow's number programmed into her phone under a contact name that would mean nothing to anyone reading her screen. She called. Darrow picked up on the second ring. "We have a situation," Lena said. "Harlan moved last night. He's holding leverage at the Langford warehouse, and Cormac Ashby is planning to walk in alone in approximately 75 minutes. The sound of movement, papers, a chair. Tell me exactly what you know," Darrow said. She told him everything. The photograph under the door, Breck, Stellan's documentation, the 2 years of financial records Cormac had been holding in reserve, the specific structure of Harlan's offshore network that Stellan had mapped before he was taken. "This is enough," Darrow said. The particular flatness of someone who has been waiting for a specific door to open and is now looking at it standing open. "I know," she said. "I need Ashby to cooperate. He will. You're certain?" She thought about Cormac standing in her kitchen saying "I know" every time she held a line, saying okay when he meant it. Building 2 years of material he never used because he was saving it for the moment it actually mattered. "Yes," she said. "I'm certain. Langford warehouse. We'll be in position in 50 minutes. A brief pause. "Ms. Voss?" "Yes." "Don't let him go in before we're set." She looked at the file in her hands. At the morning light on the kitchen counter. At the closed door of the Purple Kingdom, where her daughter was running her summit with full diplomatic authority. "I know what I'm doing," she said. The safe house on Alderman was a 3rd-floor apartment in a building that looked entirely ordinary. Which was, of course, the point Cole drove her, silently. She appreciated that. She knocked. Cormac opened the door. He looked at her, then at Cole behind her. Something moved through his face. Not anger. Worse than anger. The expression of a man who has been trying to protect someone and has just discovered they've moved completely around him. "Go inside," he said to Cole. Cole went inside. She and Cormac stood in the doorway. "You can't be here," he said. "I am here, Lena. Darrow has 50 minutes to get into position. So you have 50 minutes before you do anything." A pause. "You called the FBI," he said, 6 days ago. The silence had weight to it. "You've been building this for 6 days?" "Yes, without telling me. You didn't tell me about the warehouse until this morning," she said. "We're even," his jaw. "This isn't the same thing, no. It's better. Because I'm not asking you to walk into a room alone. I'm asking you to walk in with federal agents already in position before you arrive." She stepped forward, just slightly. Someone had to think instead of react. He looked at her, a long look. The real one. No management in it. No distance. "Is Stellan safe in there?" he said. "Darrow says Harlan won't move on him before you arrive. He needs you cooperative. That's the whole point of this." She paused. "He's not going to hurt Stellan. He's going to use Stellan to make you kneel. That's what this has always been about. I know what it's about. Then stop planning to give him what he wants." A long pause. He stepped back from the door. She walked in. The safe house was 4 rooms. Functional. Clean. A folding table with a laptop and printed maps and the organized mess of men working under time pressure. 2 men she didn't know looked up, looked at Cormac, received a microscopic nod, returned to the maps. Lena set her phone on the table. Darrow's number on the screen. 43 minutes, she said. "That's how long before they're in position." Cormac looked at the phone, at her. "What did you give him?" "Everything Stellan documented. The offshore accounts, the transaction network, the company structure." She paused. "And 2 years of your records that Stellan said described to me. The ones you've been holding, those records, are the thing that ends this," she said. "Not a deterrent. An ending. That's what you said you wanted. He was very still. Stellan told you about those records. Stellan talks to me the way people talk to someone they trust to use information carefully. A beat. You have to give them to Darrow, she said. All of it. Today. When this is over, if I give Darrow everything, you walk away clean. Or you walk away with conditions you can manage. Either way, you walk away. She paused. You said you were almost done. Almost is not done. And I need done. I need. She heard the words after she said them. The shape of them. He heard them too. He looked at her for a long moment. You said I need, he said quietly. I did. Not Ren needs. Not, I know what I said. The room went very quiet. The two men by the table became deeply interested in the maps. Cormac picked up her phone, looked at Darrow's number. Set it back down. Tell me the plan, he said. The plan, Cormac would go to Langford alone, as Harlan demanded. Enter the warehouse. Engage Harlan in conversation, which Harlan would want, because Harlan had always been a man who needed to be heard defeating you, not just defeating you, Darrow's people in position before he arrived. 6 agents, 2 entry points. 1 exit secured. The moment Stellan was visible and confirmed safe, Darrow moved. Cormac's job was to keep Harlan talking long enough for that to happen. He'll want me to acknowledge what he's built, Cormac said. He'll want the speech. 20 years with my uncle. What he's owed. What I took from him. Can you give him that? Lena said. I can give him whatever he needs to hear for 10 minutes. Good, he looked at her. You're calm, yes, this doesn't. I'm terrified, she said. Simple, flat, but being terrified doesn't help Stellan. So I'm being calm instead, she paused. I've had a lot of practice. He looked at her for a moment. 4 years, he said. 4 years. Alone, yes. He didn't say anything to that. Because there was nothing to say that didn't land as apology or justification, and she didn't need either one. He just looked at her. The full weight of it. I'm going to finish this, he said, I know. And then, one thing at a time, she said. Finish this first. She waited at the safe house. Cole stayed with her. The 2 other men left with Cormac. The apartment went quiet. She sat at the folding table with her phone in her hand and Darrow's number 1 touch away and tried not to think about the Langford warehouse, the layout she'd never seen, the man she'd known at 18 and was still, against all reasonable judgment, beginning to trust again. Don't, she told herself, don't think about that right now. She thought about Ren instead. Ren, at the Harwell apartment with a babysitter Lena trusted, who had been told that morning that Mommy had a very important errand and would be back by lunch. Ren, who had looked at her mother with those steady dark eyes and said, Is it about Daddy? And Lena had said, Yes, a little. And Ren had said, Tell him to be careful because I haven't taught him all the pancake rules yet. Lena had pressed her face into her daughter's curls for 4 seconds. Then she had gone. Cole made coffee. Terrible coffee. She drank it anyway. 20 minutes, 30. Her phone rang. Darrow. We're in position. Ashby is approaching now. Stellan. Confirmed visible. Restrained but walking. A pause. Your man is good. He walked in like he owned the place. He did own it once. How long, she said. We move when we have eyes on both of them in the same frame. 5 minutes. Maybe 10. She set the phone on the table, pressed both hands flat on the surface, looked at the wall. Cole, across the table, said nothing, which was correct. In, out, one thing at a time. It was 7 minutes. The call came at 10:14. Done, Darrow said. Harlan is in custody. Ashby is fine. Stellan has a split lip and a grievance, but he's walking, she exhaled. All the way out. Everything she'd been holding since 7:43 that morning. Thank you, she said. Miss, a pause. I'm going to need Ashby in my office at 3 o'clock. With the records you described, he'll be there. You're confident? Yes. Another pause, slightly longer. You're an interesting person, Darrow said. I'm a mother, she said. We solve problems. She hung up. Cole was looking at her. Done, she said. He let out a breath that had clearly been building since dawn. I'll call Cormac. Tell him I'm here. He knows you're here. Tell him anyway. He came back at 11:30. She heard the car, the door. His footsteps on the stairs, different from before. Not fast, not controlled. Just his footsteps at their natural pace, like a man who no longer has a reason to hurry because the thing he was hurrying toward has already happened. He came in, looked at her. She looked at him fine. That was the first thing she confirmed. She did it the way she imagined he'd done it at the safe house door. Fast, face, postures, hands. Fine. He crossed the room, and then she was in his arms. Not because she'd decided to be. Not because she'd calculated whether this was wise or premature, or consistent with the position she'd been carefully maintaining for 10 days. Just because he crossed the room and his arms came around her, and her face went into his shoulder, and that was simply what happened. He held on, not possessively. Not the way she'd feared he might. Just holding, just there. Solid and warm and smelling of cold air in the January city and something underneath that was simply him. She let him. For a full minute she let him. Then she stepped back. He let her go. "Stellan," she said. "He's with a doctor. He's fine." His voice was rough at the edges. "Cole is picking him up. Darrow wants you at 3. "I know," he called. He looked at her. "You told him about the records." "Yes, all of them. Everything." He was quiet for a moment, processing something. "You knew I wouldn't use them myself," he said. Not accusatory. "Just seeing it clearly, you would have used them eventually," she said. "When you were sure the timing was right." When every variable was controlled, she held his gaze. But Harlan moved first, and controlled timing was gone, so you moved first. Someone had to. He looked at her, the look with no management in it. The one she'd been trying to build a vocabulary for since the night at Cartwell's. "I planned to protect you," he said. "That was always the plan. Keep you separate. Handle everything. Bring you into a situation that was already clean." "I know. That's not what happened. No, it isn't." She tilted her head slightly. "You didn't account for me?" "No," he said. "I didn't. You should have." A pause. Something in his face. Not quite a smile. The thing before a smile. "Yes," he said. "I should have." 3 o'clock came and went. She didn't go to the meeting with Darrow. That was his territory. His records. His choices to make now that the moment had arrived and the door was standing open. She went to pick up Wren. The babysitter reported that Wren had spent the morning redesigning the Maritime Summit into an intergalactic trade federation, and that Captain Buttons had been elected president of something. "Was there a competitive election?" Lena said. "There was a vote. Captain Buttons was the only candidate. That tracks." She bundled Wren into her coat. They walked home through the January cold, Wren narrating the political situation at full volume and with considerable detail. The Bears had concerns. The trade routes were in dispute. Captain Buttons had issued a statement regarding the marshmallow supply. "Mommy," Wren said mid-narrative. "Yes? Is Daddy okay?" Lena looked down at her daughter, 4 years old, steady dark eyes. The jaw that came from someone else entirely. "He's okay," she said. "Did he do the thing where he tries to fix everything by himself?" Lena stopped walking, looked at Wren. "Why do you ask that?" Wren shrugged. "That's what boys do. Mrs. Garfield says her husband did it too. She says it's very tiring." "It is very tiring. Did you fix it for him?" Lena started walking again. "I helped." Wren considered this with care. "Good," she said. "That's what families do." That night, after dinner, after bath. After 3 stories, Wren had negotiated from 2 to 3 and then attempted a 4th on procedural grounds, which Lena denied with genuine admiration for the effort. After the lights were out and Captain Buttons was positioned correctly and the Purple Kingdom was quiet. Lena sat at the kitchen counter with the day in her hands. The knock came at 9:15. Twice. Only one person in her current life knocked exactly twice. She opened the door. Cormac. Still in the clothes from that morning. No coat, just the dark sweater. He looked not tired exactly, but lighter. Something she hadn't seen on him before. Something that looked like the first full breath after a long time of not quite getting there. "Darrow," she said. 3 hours. He came in. She closed the door. He had questions. I had answers. There will be conditions. What kind? Cooperation on 2 other matters. Testimony if it comes to that. And a clean exit from all current structures within 90 days. He paused. 90 days. Then it's done. She looked at him. Not almost. Done. She sat on the couch. He sat in the chair across from it. And for a while they just sat. In the kitchen light of the Harwell apartment while the city moved outside the window, and Wren slept in the Purple Kingdom. And the particular weight of the day settled around them. "I stood outside your window," he said. She looked at him. He was looking at his hands. 5 years ago. The night I left, he paused. "I stood on the street below your window for almost 20 minutes. Your light went out at 11:40. I had my hand raised to knock." He stopped. "And then I didn't. The room was very quiet." "Why?" she said. "Because if I went in I wouldn't leave." He looked up. "And I had to leave. There was no version of what I was walking into that ended well for you, if you were standing next to me. The people who wanted what my uncle left behind." They weren't careful about what they destroyed to get it. I had to become someone they were afraid of before I was safe to be near. He paused. I thought leaving was the only way I could protect you. She looked at him for a long moment. You chose for me, she said. Yes, without asking, yes. You decided what I could handle. He didn't look away. Yes, and I was wrong. I know that now. He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. If I had gone in that night, if I'd told you what was happening, what I was walking into, you would have told me to go. You would have said go and come back when it's over, and I will be here. Yes, she said. I would have, and I couldn't bear that, he said. Being someone you had to release in order to survive. So I didn't give you the choice, he exhaled. That was the most arrogant thing I've ever done. And I've done some arrogant things. She looked at him. The apartment, the soft light, his face without its professional shell. The boy I knew would have hated who you became, she said. Not as an accusation, just the truth of it, I know. He was kind, reckless. He thought the world was more fixable than it is, she paused. He stood on the wrong side of a door for 20 minutes because he was afraid of what it meant to stay. Yes, so was he, she said. Afraid of what it meant to stay, something in his face. Yes, he said. He was. She was quiet for a moment. The man in front of me, she said. The one who drove 11 minutes to a midnight door because I called. Who measured chocolate chips because a 4-year-old told him to. Who handed a federal agent everything he'd spent 2 years protecting because someone else decided the moment had come. She paused. That man is afraid of different things. Yes. What is he afraid of? He looked at her. Steady. Completely still. Getting this wrong, he said. Having you in front of me, after everything, and still managing to get it wrong. The room held that for a moment. Then don't, she said. I'm trying. Try differently. She looked at him. Don't make decisions for me. Don't acquire buildings without asking. Don't protect me from things I have the right to know about. She held his gaze. Ask. And I'll decide. And if I decide yes, then we do it together. And if I decide no, then that's the answer. He absorbed this, Lena. Yes, can I stay? Tonight, on the couch with the lumpy cushion on the left side a beat. I noticed it, she almost laughed, stopped herself. Then didn't bother. The cushion is lumpy because Ren uses it as a launching pad, she said. I'll survive. You've survived worse, considerably. A pause. Can I stay? She looked at him. This man in her kitchen, in her apartment. In the life that had been entirely hers for 4 years and was now, by degrees, by decisions, by a small person who had named a stuffed rabbit president of an intergalactic federation and added Daddy to the family portrait in a slightly different crayon. Becoming something different. Yes, she said. You can stay. She woke at 6:52, lay still for a moment, listening. Ren's voice from the kitchen, explaining something, patiently, with authority, and his voice lower. Asking a question. And Ren again. Patient. Like explaining something to someone who is willing but needs guidance. She lay there and listened to the two of them in the early morning. The particular, ordinary, extraordinary fact of it. Then she got up, the kitchen, Ren on the chair. Cormac at the counter, flour, eggs, chocolate chips already out. Ren holding a small piece of paper covered in crayon markings. That, Lena said, stopping in the doorway, is a recipe. It's my recipe, Ren said. I made it. It has the correct amounts. Lena looked at the paper. The amounts were expressed in units that appeared to be called handfuls and a lot, and one entry that simply said the right number of chips. Very precise, Lena said. Science requires precision, Ren said. Mrs. Hartley says that. Cormac looked at Lena over Ren's head. Something in his face. Not the enormous thing from the park. Something quieter. Something that had found its resting place. Coffee's ready, he said. She went to the counter, poured herself a cup, stood next to him while Ren exhausted her recipe with surgical focus. How long have you been up? She said quietly. Since 6. She found me on the couch at 6:15. Told me we were making pancakes. A pause. I didn't really have input on that. Nobody does. She has a system. She always has a system. He looked at Ren. Then at her. She told me I should ask you something. Lena paused with her coffee halfway to her mouth. Should I be concerned? Probably not. She said I should ask if we could all go to the park today. After pancakes. Because Daddy needs to learn that the big slide isn't scary if you hold the sides. Lena looked at her daughter, who was measuring chocolate chips with intense concentration and appeared to be paying absolutely no attention whatsoever to the adults. Did she? Lena said. She made a reasonably compelling case. She usually does. He was quiet for a moment. What do you think? She thought about the park in January, the cold, the bare trees, Wren on the big slide, fearless and specific, holding the sides with complete authority. I think yes, she said. Wren looked up. Are we going to the park? After pancakes, Lena said, and after the dishes, Wren, Mrs. Hartley says you always do the dishes. She pointed at Cormac. He needs to learn that too. Cormac looked at Lena. Lena looked at him. She's not wrong, Lena said. I've never done dishes, he said. First time for everything. Wren nodded, returned to her recipe. More chips, she said. A lot more. The park, cold. January bare trees. The particular stillness of a weekday morning when the playground is nearly empty and the city has gone about its business elsewhere. And this small corner of it belongs, briefly, to whoever has shown up. Wren on the big slide, holding the sides, completely fearless. Cormac at the bottom, watching, Lena on the bench with her coffee. Wren reached the bottom, jumped up. Triumphant, see, she announced. Holding the sides, I see. Your turn. He looked at the slide. At Wren. At the slide again. That's your turn, Wren said. Non-negotiable. He looked at Lena. She raised her coffee cup slightly. You're on your own. He stood up, walked to the ladder, and Lena watched Cormac Ashby, a man who had once made an entire warehouse full of dangerous people afraid of him, who had held the leverage of 2 years of evidence like a card to be played at precisely the right moment, climb a playground slide with complete and total seriousness, and hold the sides. Wren was at the bottom, hands clasped. The expression of a judge. He came down. Wren nodded once. Good. See, not scary? Not scary, he agreed, with complete sincerity. He walked back to the bench. Sat next to Lena. They were quiet for a moment. Renvert was already climbing again. Equal say in everything about Wren, Lena said. Always. No exceptions. He turned to look at her. No more secrets kept for my benefit. Whatever is happening in your world, I hear about it before it lands at my door. She held his gaze. And the 90 days. We don't talk about us, whatever us might mean, until it's actually completely done. He looked at her. All three. No exceptions? All three, he said. No exceptions? She nodded once. He looked at Wren on the ladder, and after 90 days we'll see. That's not much to go on, no. It isn't. A pause. Okay, he said. And she believed him, not because she'd stopped being afraid, not because 10 days had erased 4 years, not because one Sunday morning and one January park and one very decisive 4-year-old could rebuild what 5 years of silence had taken down. But because from this man, this specific man who had learned, slowly and at considerable cost, that was a complete sentence, meant something she was beginning to understand how to hold. Wren came down the slide, ran to them, climbed onto the bench between them with complete authority, and sat there like someone who had personally engineered this specific seating arrangement, and was satisfied with how it had turned out. Captain Buttons wants to come to the park next time, she announced. Captain Buttons is a stuffed rabbit, Lena said. He has opinions. He's not real. Wren looked at her, patient. The steady dark eyes, the jaw that came from the man sitting on the other side of her. Mommy. All the best people are a little bit imaginary. Lena opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Cormac, who was looking at Wren with the expression she would never be able to describe. The enormous quiet thing that had no professional distance in it at all. She's not wrong, he said. I'm never wrong, Wren said, and slid off the bench to return to the slide, the walk home, cold. The city doing its ordinary things. A cab at the corner, a delivery truck double parked on Mercer. The particular smell of winter in a city that has already made its peace with the cold and is simply getting on with things, Wren between them, holding both their hands. Not because anyone had asked her to. Not because anyone had arranged it. Just because she was 4, and the sidewalk had ice patches, and she had 2 hands available, and 2 adults walking next to her, and that was the obvious, logical, natural solution. Simple math. The best kind. Lena felt the small, warm weight of her daughter's hand. Felt, on the other side of Wren, the slight adjustment as Cormac shifted his grip so her arm wasn't stretched too far. He noticed. He always noticed. Pancakes tomorrow, too? Wren asked. Saturday is a special occasion pancake day, Lena said. Daddy can come. Lena looked past Wren at Cormac. He was looking at her, not asking, not pushing, just waiting to see what she would do with this. With the casual, total 4-year-old certainty of Daddy can come. Daddy can come, Lena said, something in his face. The quiet thing. Settled? Okay, he said. They walked the rest of the way home, the 3 of them. On an ordinary January morning, on an ordinary street in a city that didn't care about any of them in particular and never had. Ren narrated the journey in full. Lena listened. Cormac listened. And somewhere between the icy patch on the corner and the cracked step at the building entrance, which Ren navigated by jumping over it with both feet, the way she always did, the way she'd been doing since she was old enough to jump. Something settled, not everything. Not the 90 days, not the questions that didn't have answers yet, not the full shape of what came after, but something. The particular weight of a held breath finally released, the specific gravity of two people choosing this in the same moment on an ordinary sidewalk to stay. Lena felt the small hand in hers, felt the cold air on her face, felt the city moving around them, indifferent as it had always been, and thought, I see what's in front of me. I understand what it costs. I am choosing it anyway. Not the desperate version of that thought, not the surviving version, the other one, the one that meant she meant it.